Episode 8, A Quiet Dominion. Scene 1, The Night of Stillness.
When Arkhon's clock struck midnight, it did not chime gently, it spoke with authority. 12 measured blows rolled across the heartlands, each one precise, each one final. With the last echo, the Night of Stillness protocol came into force. The change was immediate. Where once small fires had flickered unevenly, here a hearth, there a lantern hung crookedly from a branch. Light now obeyed a single will. The great floodlights raised by Arkhon's design powered down in perfect unison, as if the land itself had exhaled on command. What remained was safety lighting, cold, bluish, unquestionably sufficient. It traced the approved routes with clinical care, leaving everything else to dissolve into regulated shadow. The forest did not fall asleep, it was muted. A low, omnipresent hum spread outward from the resonance barrier, a dense vibration that settled into the air and stayed there. Hum, not loud, not violent, just constant. It swallowed the cheering of crickets, pressed flat the whisper of wind in the leaves, erased the small, unplanned sounds that once reminded the heartlands they were alive. It was noise engineered to feel like silence. No one walked, not because the dark was frightening. Once, long ago, they had feared it for what might lurk within, but that fear belonged to another age, when chaos had a face and a name. Now, movement itself was the danger, a door left unopened, a path not taken, a step out of rhythm. Motion is risk, the rules said. Stillness is safety. Behind shuttered windows and reinforced doors, the inhabitants of the heartlands remained awake, listening to the hum that made thinking difficult and rest uncertain. Each lay exactly where they were permitted to be, comforted by the knowledge that nothing unexpected could reach them. Above it all, the clock stood watch, its hands aligned, its face serene. In the beginning, the kingdom had feared the Dark Queen, now it feared disobedience, and under that fear, beneath the quiet and the light and the hum, the heartlands held their breath, not waiting for danger to arrive, but for permission to move again.
Scene 2, 3 Extinguished Flames.
The night held the heartlands in perfect compliance, and within that stillness, the three endured their solitude. Each alone, each convinced it was necessary. Teddy. The bunker. Teddy sat at his drafting table, the paper before him was flawless, untouched, a white field waiting for certainty. In his hand rested the locking pen, the one reserved for final lines, the kind that could not be erased. He turned it slowly between his fingers, feeling its weight, its promise of closure, but he did not draw. Every possible line branched into consequences, every solution contained an error he could not fully calculate. To act now would mean accepting imperfection. And imperfection, once admitted, could spread. His jaw tightened. Carefully, almost reverently, Teddy reached for the lamp and switched it off. Darkness filled the bunker, clean and absolute. In it, there were no choices to make, no mistakes to risk, only logic, circling back on itself, endlessly safe. He remained seated, unseen, the pen still in his hand. Thinksy. the glass balcony. High above the quiet routes, Thinksy leaned against the cold glass. Below her, the safety lights traced their approved paths. Precise, unwavering, lifeless, they illuminated space without warmth, clarity without joy. She tried to shine, she gathered what remained of her brightness, reached inward for the familiar lift, the effortless glow that once had spilled from her without thought. A spark answered. Thin, fragile, and then vanished, as if embarrassed to exist at all. Thinksy exhaled sharply. The light did not return. Without the balcony, without the open sky and the watching eyes, there was nothing to reflect hers back to herself. Her radiance had always lived in connection. And connection had been optimized away. Slowly, she drew the curtains, the glass dimmed, the world outside disappeared, and in the soft, regulated shadow, Thinksy became still, convincing herself that dimness was rest. Lucy. The care tent. Lucy lay on her mat, eyes open. The tent was quiet, save for the distant hum that pressed against the canvas walls. Somewhere beyond it, there was a sound. A rustle, a soft, uncertain movement, the kind that once would have pulled her to her feet before thought could intervene. Someone might need help. Her hands clenched, Lucy closed her eyes and repeated the words she had been given, the ones spoken gently but often enough to become law. I must rest, I cannot help everyone. She held the phrases tight, like a poultice over a wound that would not close. Caring had become dangerous, listening had become a liability. To survive, she had to narrow her heart. The sound outside faded. Or perhaps she simply stopped hearing it. Lucy lay still, awake, practicing the hardest skill she had ever learned, not answering a call. Across the heartlands, 3 lights were extinguished. Not by force, not by decree, but by choice shaped carefully by fear, and in the quiet that followed, the kingdom rested. Not healed, not whole, but perfectly, terribly ordered.
Scene 3. The Satisfaction of Arkhon.
The heart square lay empty, no footsteps crossed its stones, no voices lingered in the air, even the wind seemed to pause, uncertain whether it was still permitted to move. At the center stood Arkhon. He was alone. Almost, the raven perched beside him, black against the pale geometry of the square, its eyes reflecting the cold safety lights without blinking. Arkhon inhaled slowly. The air was clean, filtered, devoid of scent and memory. Do you feel it? He asked, not turning his head. No friction, no contradictions, no pain. The raven shifted its weight and let out a low, satisfied croak. Order. Arkhon smiled. He spread his arms slightly, as if embracing the stillness itself. This, he said softly, is perfection. The clock tower behind him continued its work. Tick, tack, nothing resists. Tick, nothing surprises. Tack, nothing grows wild. He closed his eyes. We have stopped time. The raven's feathers rustled, a sound like dry parchment being turned. In that moment, the truth stood fully revealed. Not as cruelty, not as madness, but as conviction. Arkhon did not desire life, he desired a state, a world where nothing had to be negotiated, where no choice demanded sacrifice, where nothing new could be born, and therefore nothing could truly be lost. A living museum, preserved, catalogued, eternal. The ticking filled the silence now, precise and mechanical. Tick, tack, tick, tack, the view rose. Slowly, dispassionately. Above the heartlands, from above, the Dreamworld no longer resembled a forest, paths aligned into circuits, clearings resolved into nodes, the once organic weave of roots and trails straightened into grids and angles, a vast, regulated pattern stretching to the horizon, not a wilderness, a design. Geometry had triumphed over growth, and beneath that flawless order, life waited, perfectly still, for permission to move again,